Alian prinsese had given up until he saw his daughter walking with me. Emperor Thane stood at the tall window of his palace, looking out at the dying city below. The crystal towers of Zephyr Prime no longer glowed with their usual bright light. Instead, they flickered weakly like candles in the wind. The streets that once buzzed with millions of his people were now mostly empty. Only medical vehicles moved through the silent roads, carrying the sick to hospitals that could do nothing for them. The Crimson Plague had been killing his people for 2 years now. It started small in the outer colonies, a few dozen cases, of a strange sickness that made people unable to move their bodies. The doctors said it would be easy to stop. They were wrong. Thane touched the cold window with his blue hand. His skin, like all Zephyrians, looked like living crystal. But now it seemed dull and gray. He felt as sick as his empire looked, even though the plague had not touched him yet. "Your Majesty," came a soft voice behind him. Thane did not turn. Around, he knew it was Dr. Vex, his chief medical officer. The doctor had been bringing him bad news every day for months. "How many today?" Thane asked, his voice tired and flat. 3,000 more cases, Dr. Vex said quietly. "The hospitals in the South District are full. We are setting up emergency centers in the old shopping areas." Thane closed his eyes. 3,000 in one day. Last week it was 2,000. The week before, 1,000. The numbers kept growing, and his people kept dying. And the research teams, Thane asked, though he already knew the answer. "No progress, Your Majesty." "The plague attacks the nervous system in a way we have never seen before. It breaks the connection between the brain and the body. Once it starts, we cannot stop it. The patients become paralyzed within days. Then their minds begin to fade away." Thane finally turned to face the doctor. Dr. Vex was old, one of the smartest Zephyrians alive. His crystalline skin was covered in the blue patterns that showed great knowledge. But now, even this brilliant doctor looked defeated. "What about the medicine from the Galactic Council?" Thane asked. Dr. Vex shook his head. "It does not work on our biology. The other species tried to help, but their treatments make the plague worse for us. We are alone in this fight, Your Majesty." "Alone?" The word hit Thane like a physical blow. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had the best technology, the smartest scientists, the most advanced medicine. How could they be helpless against a simple disease? "Your Majesty," Dr. Vex said carefully, "there is something else." Thane's heart sank lower. "What now? It's Princess Lyra? The plague? It has reached her." The words felt like ice in Thane's veins. His daughter, his beautiful, brilliant daughter. The one light left in his dark world. "How long?" he whispered. "The symptoms started yesterday. She is still conscious, but the paralysis is beginning in her legs." "I am sorry, Your Majesty. I am so very sorry." Thane felt his knees go weak, grabbed the edge of his desk to stay standing. Princess Lyra was everything good about their people. She was smart, kind, and brave. She spent her days visiting the hospitals, bringing hope to the sick families. She worked with the research teams, trying to find answers. She never gave up, even when everyone else wanted to. And now the plague would take her too. "Want to see her," Thane said. Dr. Vex nodded. "She is in the medical wing." "But Your Majesty, you should know, she is asking for you to stay away." "What?" "She does not want you to see her like this. She says an emperor should not watch his people die if he cannot save them." Thane felt anger flash through him, not at his daughter, but at everything. At the plague, at his useless doctors, at himself for being powerless. "She is not just my people," he said, his voice shaking. "She is my daughter." But even as he said it, Thane knew Lyra was right. What could he do? Hold her hand while she died? Watch the light fade from her eyes like it had faded from their empire? Dr. Vex left him alone. Thane walked back to the window and looked out at his dying world. In the distance, he could see the spaceport. Every day, more ships left Zephyr Prime. His people were running away, looking for new homes in other parts of the galaxy. He did not blame them. Why stay to die when they could live somewhere else? The sun was setting, painting the crystal city in red light. It looked beautiful and terrible at the same time, like blood on diamonds. Thane thought about his grandfather, who had built this empire. His grandfather never faced anything like this. Wars, yes. Political problems, yes. But never something that could not be fought with weapons or smart thinking. "Oh, I've failed you all," he whispered to the empty room. On his desk lay reports from his generals, his ministers, his scientists. All of them said the same thing in different ways. There was no hope. The Crimson Plague would kill 60% of their people, maybe more. The lucky ones would escape to other worlds. The Zephyrian Empire would end not with a battle, but with a slow, quiet death. Thane had stopped reading the reports weeks ago. He had stopped going to meetings. What was the point? They were just watching their civilization die. One person at a time. Somewhere in the medical wing, his daughter was fighting a battle she could not win, just like the rest of them. As night fell over the Crystal City, Emperor Thane made a decision. Tomorrow, he would sign the surrender documents. He would officially end the Zephyrian Empire and tell his remaining people to find new homes among the stars. It was time to stop pretending they could save themselves. The light was dying, and there was nothing left to do but accept the darkness. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency signal came through. The small research ship Endeavour was floating peacefully near the edge of human space, studying plant samples from a nearby moon. It was supposed to be a quiet mission, just Sarah and her team of 12 researchers collecting data for 3 months. The signal changed everything. Dr. Chen called Marcus, the ship's communication officer. His voice was urgent and excited. "You need to hear this." Sarah put down her coffee and hurried to the bridge. Marcus was young, fresh out of the academy, and he got excited about everything. But this time, his face was serious. "It's a distress call," Marcus said, "from the Zephyrian Empire." Sarah felt her heart skip. The Zephyrians were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had technology that humans could only dream about. "What could make them ask for help? Play it," she said. The message was short and desperate. Emperor Thane's voice translated by the ship's computer filled the bridge. "This is Emperor Thane of the Zephyrian Empire. We are facing extinction from a plague we cannot cure. 60% of our population is dead or dying. We request any medical assistance from species with knowledge of neurological diseases. Time is running out." The message repeated several times, growing weaker each time. Sarah could hear the hopelessness in the Emperor's voice. "When did this come in?" she asked. 2 days ago, Marcus said. "It's been broadcasting on all emergency channels. 2 days. Why hasn't anyone responded?" Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Actually, Dr. Chen, several species have responded. The Galactic Health Council sent a report yesterday. They said the Crimson Plague is impossible to cure. They warned all ships to stay away from Zephyrian space." Sarah frowned. "It's possible to cure. That's not very scientific," the report says. "The plague attacks the nervous system in a way that destroys all brain-body connections. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. The best scientists from 5 different species tried to help. They all failed. Some of their doctors even got sick trying." Dr. James Wong, Sarah's research partner, walked onto the bridge. He was older than Sarah, more careful, and much more worried about following rules. "Sarah, please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking," he said. Sarah smiled. James knew her too well. "We're medical researchers, James. People are dying. Of course we're going to help." The Galactic Health Council said to stay away. "The Galactic Health Council isn't human," Sarah said simply. James stared at her. "What does that mean?" Sarah walked to the main computer and pulled up the plague data that came with the distress call. The information was incomplete, but it showed something interesting. The Crimson Plague attacked the same brain pathways that humans used for motor control and muscle memory. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "The plague damages the neural pathways between the brain and muscles. It's like the brain forgets how to control the body." "So?" James asked. "So humans have been dealing with similar problems for centuries? Stroke patients, spinal cord injuries, brain trauma. We've learned how to help people retrain their brains to work around damage. Dr. Lisa Park, the team's neurologist, joined the conversation. She was quiet and thoughtful, the kind of person who noticed details others missed. Sarah has a point, Lisa said. From what I'm reading, other species tried to cure the disease. Directly, they focused on stopping the plague itself. Which makes sense, James said. But what if that's the wrong approach? Lisa continued. What if instead of curing the disease, we teach the brain to work around it? Sarah nodded excitedly. Exactly. Humans are really good at adaptation. We don't just fix problems, we learn to live with them and find new ways to succeed. Marcus was listening to their conversation with growing excitement. So we're going to help them? James looked worried. Sarah, this is dangerous. The plague could kill us too, maybe Sarah admitted. But James, these people are dying. Their whole civilization is ending. If there's even a small chance we can help, don't we have to try? The bridge was quiet for a moment. Sarah could see her team thinking, weighing the risks against the possibility of saving millions of lives. Dr. Alan Torres, their biochemist, spoke up from his station. I've been analyzing the plague data. It seems to only affect species with crystalline neural structures. Humans have carbon-based brains. We might be naturally immune. James sighed. Even if we can't get sick, what makes you think we can succeed where advanced species like the Altarians and Centaurians failed? Sarah looked at each of her team members. They were good people, smart scientists, and they all shared the same human stubborn streak that refused to give up. Because they're not human, she said finally. Those other species are older than us, smarter than us, more advanced than us. But they think differently than we do. When they see an impossible problem, they accept it's impossible. And humans? Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. Humans don't believe in impossible, Sarah said. We're too stubborn to quit. Marcus was already at his station, setting course for Zephyrian space. Dr. Chen, it will take us 3 days to reach Zephyr Prime. James shook his head, but he was smiling a little. You're all crazy, you know that, right? Probably, Sarah admitted. But James, imagine if we can help them. Imagine if we can save their whole species. And if we can't, then at least we tried. That's what humans do. The Endeavor turned toward Zephyrian space, a tiny ship carrying 12 humans toward what the rest of the galaxy had declared a hopeless situation. Behind them, other species watched from safe distances, convinced that the stubborn humans were flying toward their own doom. But Sarah Chen had studied human history. She knew that impossible problems had a funny way of becoming possible when humans refused to give up. Sometimes the solution wasn't to be smarter or more advanced. Sometimes the solution was to be too stubborn to quit. The Endeavor flew through space toward a dying empire, carrying humanity's greatest weapon, the Absolute. Refusal to accept defeat. The Endeavor arrived at Zephyr Prime to find a world that looked like it was already dead. The crystal cities still stood, but their lights were dim. Only a few ships moved through space around the planet. Most of the traffic was heading away. From the world, not toward it. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, looking down at the beautiful but dying planet. The crystal towers caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across the land, but something felt wrong. It was too quiet, too empty. They're not answering our calls, Marcus reported from his station. I've been trying to contact the palace for an hour. Keep trying, Sarah said. She was not going to give up before they even started. Finally, a tired voice came through the speakers. It was Dr. Vex, the chief medical officer, which words were translated by the ship's computer. But Sarah could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Human ship, you should not be here. The plague is. Beyond help, please leave our space before you get sick, too. Dr. Vex, this is Dr. Sarah Chen from Earth. We're here to help with the plague research. There was a long pause. Dr. Chen, I appreciate your courage, but the greatest minds in the galaxy have tried to help us. The Centaurian specialists, the Altarian bioengineers, even the ancient ethereals, they all failed. You will only waste your time and risk your lives. Sarah took a deep breath. Dr. Vex, with respect, none of those species were human. We'd like permission to land and study the plague ourselves. Another long pause. The Emperor is... not seeing visitors. He has lost hope. But if you insist on coming, I will meet you. At the medical center. 2 hours later, Sarah and Dr. Lisa Park stood in the sterile halls of the Zephyrian Medical Center. The building was huge, but mostly empty. Dr. Vex met them at the entrance, an elderly Zephyrian whose crystal skin looked gray and dull. I must warn you, Dr. Vex said as he led them through the quiet halls, what you will see is not pleasant. The plague takes away everything that makes us who we are. They walked past rooms full of patients lying still as stone. Their crystal skin had lost its glow. Some stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. Others had fallen into deep sleeps they might never wake from. The disease attacks the nervous system, Dr. Vex explained. First, the body stops responding to the brain. Then, slowly, the mind begins to fade. We have no cure, no treatment, nothing that even slows it down. Sarah studied the patients as they walked. Something about their condition reminded her of stroke patients she had worked with on Earth, people whose brains had been damaged, but could sometimes relearn basic functions. Dr. Vex, she said, has anyone tried rehabilitation therapy? No. Zephyrian doctor looked confused. Rehabilitation? Disease cannot be cured? I don't mean curing it, Sarah said. I mean teaching the brain to work around the damage. Dr. Vex stopped walking. That is... that is not how we approach medicine. We fix the problem, or we cannot help. Lisa looked at Sarah with understanding. This was the difference. Other species tried to cure diseases completely. Humans had learned to help people live with problems that couldn't be fixed. Could we try our methods with one patient? Sarah asked. As an experiment? Dr. Vex shook his head. The Emperor has forbidden any more experiments. Says he will not watch his people suffer through false hopes. But as they talked, a Zephyrian guard had been listening. Captain Zar was Princess Lyra's personal protector, and she had been with the princess since childhood. She loved Lyra like a daughter. That night, Captain Zar came to the human ship in secret. The princess is dying, she told Sarah. In 3 days, maybe less, she will be completely paralyzed. The Emperor refuses to see her because he cannot bear to watch. But I will not let her die without trying everything. Sarah felt her heart race. This was their chance. Can you get us to her? Captain Zara nodded. The Emperor stays in his chambers all day. He has given up on everything. I can bring you to the medical wing without him knowing. The next morning, Sarah and Lisa entered Princess Lyra's room. The princess was young, maybe 25 in human years. Her crystal skin still had some glow, but it was fading. Not move her legs, and her arms were beginning to stiffen. But her eyes were bright and intelligent. You are the humans, Princess Lyra said in perfect translated English. I heard you came to help us. We're going to try, Sarah said honestly. Princess, I won't lie to you. We don't know if our methods will work. But we've helped people with similar problems on Earth. For the first time in days, Princess Lyra smiled. Then let us begin. Sarah started with simple exercises. She moved Lyra's arms and legs, trying to keep the muscles active. She had Lyra try to think about moving, while Sarah moved her limbs for her. On Earth, we've learned that the brain can find new pathways, Sarah explained as she worked. If one road is blocked, maybe we can build a new road. After 2 days of exercises, they saw the first small sign of hope. Princess Lyra's finger twitched. It was tiny, barely visible, but it was movement she had controlled herself. Did you see that? Lyra whispered excitedly. I saw it, Sarah said, trying to keep her own excitement calm. Let's try again, but the real breakthrough came when Lisa had an idea. Sarah, what if we try music therapy? It works for human brain. Injury patients. They played classical music from Earth, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. The complex patterns and rhythms seemed to awaken something in Lyra's brain. As the music played, her finger movements became stronger. Then, something amazing happened. During a piece by Bach, Lyra's whole hand moved. She grabbed Sarah's hand and squeezed it. I can feel it, Lyra said, tears running down her crystal cheeks. I can feel my hand again. Word spread quickly through the medical center. Other patients and their families begged to try the human methods. Dr. Vex was shocked by Lyra's progress. But he was also scared. What if the Emperor finds out? He asked Captain Zara. What if he doesn't? Zara replied. What if we can save them all? Soon, Sarah and her team were working with dozens of patients. They taught families how to do the exercises. They played human music in the hospital rooms. They brought hope to a place that had forgotten what hope felt like. Not every patient improved. The disease was still terrible and strong. Some got better. Some started moving again. Some began to remember who they were. And in her room, Princess Lyra was learning to move her arms again, listening to human music and believing that impossible things could become possible. The humans had brought something to Zephyr Prime that no advanced technology could provide. Stubborn belief that giving up was never an option. Emperor Thane had not left his private chambers in 5 days. The surrender documents sat on his desk, waiting for his signature. Once he signed them, the Zephyrian Empire would officially end. His people would scatter across the galaxy, finding new homes with other species who might take them in. It was the right thing to do, the logical thing. It's the only thing left. Outside his window, he could see the medical center where his daughter was dying. He had not visited her since the humans arrived. Captain Zara brought him reports every day. Foolish stories about exercises and music therapy. False hope that would only make the final loss more painful. Thane picked up his signing pen. The surrender documents were simple and clear. The Zephyrian Empire admits defeat against the Crimson Plague and formally requests relocation assistance from the Galactic Council. One signature would end 1,000 years of empire. He was about to sign when Dr. Vex burst through his door. Without permission, Your Majesty, Dr. Vex said, breathing hard from running. You must come to the medical center immediately. Thane did not look up from the documents. Dr. Vex, I told you I will not watch any more failed experiments. I will not give myself false hope again. This is not false hope, Your Majesty. Princess Lyra is standing. The pen fell from Thane's hand. What did you say? She is standing, Your Majesty. On her own, the human methods. They are working. Thane felt anger flash through him. He had heard these lies before, telling him his daughter was getting better only to watch her get worse the next day. Dr. Vex, I forbid you to lie to me about my daughter's condition. I am not lying, Dr. Vex said desperately. Please, Your Majesty, come and see for yourself. Guy, if I am wrong, you can have me arrested. But if I am right? Thane stared at the old doctor. Dr. Vex had served his family for 30 years. He was honest, careful, and never gave false hope. If he was this excited, 5 minutes, Thane said. I will give you 5 minutes. Then I am signing these documents and ending this suffering. They walked through the palace halls in silence. Thane tried to prepare himself for disappointment. Lyra was probably just moving a finger or blinking her eyes. Dr. Vex was so desperate for good news that he was seeing miracles in small things. But as they got closer to the medical center, Thane heard something impossible. Laughter. His daughter's laughter, bright and happy like it had been before the plague. They turned the corner to the medical wing, and Thane stopped breathing. Princess Lyra was standing next to her bed, holding onto the rails, but supporting her own weight. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside her, one hand ready to catch her if she fell. Lyra's crystal skin was glowing brighter than it had in months. Lyra called when she saw him. Look, I can stand. Thane could not move, could not speak. His daughter, who had been paralyzed and dying just days ago, was standing and smiling at him. What? He whispered. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Your Majesty, your daughter is incredibly strong. She has been working very hard with our rehabilitation. Exercises. We're teaching her brain to find new pathways around the plague damage. Show him, Lyra, Captain Zara said softly. She had been watching from the corner, tears running down her face. Princess Lyra took a deep breath and let go of the bed rail. For a moment she wobbled, but Dr. Chen's steady hand was there to support her. Then slowly, carefully, Lyra lifted her right foot and took a step forward, then another step, and another. She was walking. His daughter was walking. Thane felt his knees go weak. He grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. This cannot be real. It is real, Your Majesty, Dr. Chen said gently. Princess Lyra's brain is learning to control her body again. The plague damaged the original pathways, but we're helping her build new ones. Lyra took another step, then another. She was moving slowly and carefully, but she was moving on her own. She walked toward her father with the biggest smile he had seen in 2 years. I am still sick, father, Lyra said as she reached him. The plague is still in my body, but I am not letting it win. Thane reached out with shaking hands and hugged his daughter. She felt solid and real and alive in his arms, not the dying, motionless figure he had been afraid to visit. How is this possible? He asked Dr. Chen. On Earth, we have learned that the brain is incredibly good at adapting, Dr. Chen explained. When one part is damaged, other parts can sometimes take over the job. It takes time and practice, but it can work. The other alien species tried to cure the plague directly, Dr. Lisa Park added, but we're not trying to cure it. We're teaching people to live with it and work around it. Thane looked around the medical wing and saw something he had not noticed before. Other patients were sitting up in their beds. Some were moving their arms. A few were standing with help from their families. How many? He asked quietly. About 30% of the patients are showing improvement, Dr. Chen said. Not everyone responds the same way, but many are getting better. 30%. Thane repeated that was thousands of people. Thousands of his people who might live instead of die. Captain Zara spoke up. Your Majesty, the humans have been teaching our doctors and families how to do the exercises. They want to train as many people as possible before they leave. Leave, Thane said sharply. Why would you leave? Dr. Chen looked surprised. Well, Your Majesty, we assumed. We're just a small research ship. We thought, once we showed you the methods, your own doctors would take over. Thane felt panic rise in his chest. These humans had given him back his daughter. They had brought hope to his dying people. They could not leave now. Dr. Chen, he said formally, I officially request that you and your team stay and help us. Fight this plague. Name any price, anything you need. Dr. Chen smiled. Your Majesty, we don't need payment. We're here to help. But we will need your support to expand the treatment programs. Thane nodded eagerly. Anything. Princess Lyra took her father's hand. There's one more thing, father. You need to start leading again. The people need to see that their emperor has not given up. Thane looked at his daughter, standing, smiling, alive, and felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. Real, solid hope. He thought about the surrender document sitting on his desk. Captain Zara, he said. Chambers. There are some papers on my desk. Burn them, Your Majesty. The surrender documents. Burn them all. Thane looked around the medical wing at his people, who were learning to fight again. At the humans who had traveled across space to help strangers. At his daughter, who refused to let the plague win. We are not surrendering, he said firmly. We are not giving up. We're going to fight this plague with everything we have. For the first time in months, Emperor Thane felt like an emperor. Again. 6 months later, Princess Lyra stood at the podium of the Grand Medical Center on Zephyr Prime. The building was new, built specifically for the rehabilitation programs that had spread across the planet. Behind her sat doctors and patients from dozens of different species, all gathered for the first galactic conference on adaptive medicine. Lyra's crystal skin glowed with health as she looked out at the audience. She walked to the podium without help, her steps confident and sure. In the front row, Emperor Thane watched his daughter with pride that filled his entire being. 6 months ago, Lyra began, I was dying. My people were dying. Our empire was ready to surrender to a plague that our greatest minds called impossible. To cure, she paused, looking directly at Dr. Sarah Chen, who sat with her human team in the second row. Then 12 humans and a small research ship decided that impossible was just another word for we haven't tried hard enough yet. The audience laughed and applauded. Among them were Zephyrians, who had recovered from the plague, families who had learned the human rehabilitation methods, and doctors from other species who had come to learn. Today I want to share what we have learned, Lyra continued. Not just about medicine, but about the power of refusing to give up. In the months since the humans arrived, everything had changed. The rehabilitation centers were no longer just treating plague victims. They were helping Zephyrians with old injuries, birth defects, and age-related problems that doctors had always said were permanent. Dr. Vex, who now worked closely with Dr. Chen, had established training programs across the empire. Zephyrian doctors were learning human methods of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and psychological support. They were discovering that many problems they thought were impossible to fix could actually be improved with patience and the right approach. But the changes went far beyond medicine. Emperor Thane had transformed from a broken leader into someone his people called the Emperor who never surrenders. He visited the rehabilitation centers every week, encouraging patients and supporting their families. He had learned the human phrase progress, not perfection, and made it the unofficial motto of his rebuilt empire. The humans taught us that healing is not always about returning to what you were before, Lyra said to the audience. Sometimes healing means becoming something new and even stronger. The Zephyrian Empire had not just survived the Crimson Plague, it had grown stronger. The crisis had brought families together, created new medical advances, and taught an entire civilization that problems were meant to be solved, not simply accepted. Dr. Chen stood when Lyra called her to the stage. The human doctor had spent months training Zephyrian medical teams, establishing treatment protocols and documenting everything they had learned. "Your Highness, Your Majesty, friends," Dr. Chen said. "When we first came here, we thought we were just trying one more approach to an impossible problem. We had no idea we would learn as much as we taught." This was true. Human team had discovered that Zephyrian neural pathways could adapt in ways human brains could not. Working together, human and Zephyrian doctors had developed new treatments that worked for both species. "What we learned here goes beyond any single disease," Dr. Chen continued. "We learned that every species has unique strengths. Humans might be good at adaptation and refusing to quit, but Zephyrians are incredibly good at precision and systematic thinking. Together, we can solve problems that neither of us could handle alone." In the audience, representatives from the Galactic Health Council were taking careful notes. The same council that had declared the Crimson Plague impossible to cure was now asking the humans and Zephyrians to share their methods with other species. The Altarians wanted to learn human rehabilitation techniques for their own paralysis diseases. The Centaurians were interested in the music therapy that had helped unlock Zephyrian neural pathways. Even the ancient ethereals, who rarely asked for help from younger species, had sent observers to study the human approach to impossible problems. After the conference, Dr. Chen walked through the palace gardens with Princess Lyra. The crystal flowers bloomed in patterns of light, and the air was warm and peaceful. It was hard to believe this was the same dying world they had arrived at 6 months ago. "Dr. Chen," Lyra said, "my father wants to offer you permanent positions here. All of you. You could stay and help us build the greatest medical research center in the galaxy." Dr. Chen smiled but shook her head. "That's very kind, Your Highness, but we can't stay." "Why not?" Dr. Chen pointed to the sky, where the Endeavor was waiting in orbit. "'Cause there are other distress calls out there, other species facing their own impossible problems. And maybe, just maybe, they need some stubborn humans to show up and refuse to accept defeat." That evening, the human team prepared to leave. Emperor Thane and Princess Lyra came to see them off, along with hundreds of Zephyrians whose lives had been changed by the human visit. "How can we ever repay you?" Thane asked. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. "Your Majesty, you can keep doing what you're doing. Keep helping people who think their problems are impossible. Keep teaching other species that giving up is never the answer. And maybe someday, when humans need help with an impossible problem, you can be the ones who refuse to accept defeat." Thane nodded solemnly. "We will remember." As the Endeavor lifted off from Zephyr Prime, Dr. Chen looked down at the glowing crystal cities. Lights were bright again, but more than that, they pulsed with a rhythm that seemed alive and hopeful. On the bridge, Marcus was already reviewing new distress calls. There was a signal from the Vega system, something about a species losing their ability to communicate. Another call from the Outer Rim about a world where children were being born without immune systems. "Dr. Chen," Marcus said excitedly, "there are 17 different species asking for our help." Dr. Chen smiled. Word was spreading throughout the galaxy about the small human ship that showed up when everyone else had given up. Species were learning that impossible problems sometimes just needed a different approach. "Set course for the Vega system," she ordered. "Let's go see what's impossible this week." As the Endeavor jumped to hyperspace, it carried more than just 12 human researchers. It carried the growing reputation of humanity as the species that never accepted defeat. The species that looked at impossible problems and saw interesting challenges. Behind them, on Zephyr Prime, Princess Lyra was already planning the next medical conference. But this time, it would include a new category of research: human-inspired adaptive solutions. The Crimson Plague still existed, but it no longer ruled the Zephyrian Empire. Instead, the Empire had learned to rule over the plague, turning a death sentence into just another problem to solve. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to understand a simple truth that humans had always known. Impossible was just another word for nobody has been stubborn enough yet. The ripple effect had begun. It would continue spreading, one impossible problem at a time.